The concept of the four-dimensional human emerges from the recognition that our lives are no longer confined to the three dimensions of physical space. We exist in the tangible world of height, width, and depth, but we are increasingly coaxed from the three-dimensional containment of our pre-digital selves into a wonderful and eerie fourth dimension, a world of ceaseless communication, instant information, and global connection. This is the central thesis of Lawrence Scott's 2015 book, The Four-Dimensional Human: Ways of Being in the Digital World, a work that has been hailed as a highly original and pioneering portrait of life in a digital landscape, blending tech philosophy with a vast array of insights that span from Hamlet to the ghosts of social media, from Seinfeld to the fall of Gaddafi, and from Facebook politics to Oedipus. Our portals to this new world have been wedged open, and the silhouette of a figure is slowly taking shape. But what does it feel like to be four-dimensional? Scott's framework, which earned him the title of a new generation thinker from the Arts and Humanities Research Council and the BBC, does not argue that we have literally gained access to a fourth spatial dimension in the geometric sense. Instead, he employs the concept as a powerful metaphor for a radical transformation in human phenomenology, our lived experience of time, space, identity, and connection. The digital world has broken us free from the physical constraints that once defined our lives, adding a new dimension of existence that is at once liberating and disorienting. To understand this four-dimensional existence, we must explore how digital technologies influence the rhythms of our thoughts, the style and tilt of our consciousness, and what new sensitivities and sensibilities are emerging with our exposure to the delights, sorrows, and anxieties of a networked world. One of the most profound shifts in our four-dimensional existence is the transformation of our relationship with time and space. In the pre-digital era, our lives were governed by a linear and localized experience of time. The past was a series of memories, the present an immediate moment of physical presence, and the future a territory of anticipation and uncertainty. The four-dimensional human, however, exists in a state of temporal simultaneity and spatial ubiquity. Through the constant connectivity of our devices, we are everywhere at once, able to access information, communicate with people across the globe, and participate in events unfolding in distant locations in real time. This creates a curious sensation of being both anchored in a physical body and dispersed across a digital landscape. Scott explores the experience of looking through what he calls a reverse peephole into the lives of others. The reverse peephole is the digital window we open into the lives of others, a reversal of the traditional peephole that allowed us to look out and see who is at our door. Now, we are the ones who are being watched, our lives on constant display through social media profiles, shared photos, and public updates. This condition challenges our traditional understanding of privacy and intimacy. We navigate a world where the details of our lives are often visible to a vast audience of acquaintances, friends, and even strangers, leading to what Scott describes as a recoding of private lives. We are both anonymous and exhaustively identified, seen and unseen, physical and virtual, isolated and connected. The transformation of time and space is particularly evident in our evolving understanding of friendship and human connection. In the three-dimensional world, relationships were forged through physical proximity and shared experiences. The four-dimensional human cultivates friendships that transcend these boundaries, maintaining connections with people across vast distances and across time zones through a constant stream of digital communication. The friend who is perpetually updating their online profiles can seem oddly insubstantial and anachronistic in person, while the fleeting real-life encounter can turn into a persistent virtual presence, hovering around our twittering timelines. This has profound implications for the quality and nature of our social bonds. Scott notes a curious paradox. In an era when everyone has the permanent possibility of communicating with just about anyone else, his own interactions with those actually present have become curiously stilted. The ease of digital communication can paradoxically make face-to-face interactions feel more complex and demanding. A key example that Scott uses to illustrate the strange new nature of intimacy in the digital age is the rise of Airbnb and similar platforms. He suggests that Airbnb encourages us to turn booking a night stay into a paradoxical form of intimacy. We may never meet the people who pimp their sheets to us, yet both parties know exactly where to find one another should those sheets be egregiously stained. This is a form of disembodied connection, where trust is mediated by platforms and reviews, and the boundaries between public and private, commercial and personal, become blurred. It represents a new kind of human interaction that is enabled by our four-dimensional existence, one where physical presence and absence are decoupled in novel ways. The four-dimensional human is also defined by a unique relationship with technology itself. Scott observes that the culture and operation of the web thrive on our willingness to point, click, and view. We are constantly training to be taxonomists, categorizing our likes, our interests, and our connections for the algorithms that increasingly shape our digital experiences. Every interaction, every search, and every purchase is a piece of data that contributes to a profile of ourselves, often used by commercial and state apparatuses for surveillance and targeted marketing. This creates a vertiginous seesaw between seeming anonymity and actual surveillance, a defining tension of online life. We feel that we are free agents in a vast, open space, but we are simultaneously being tracked, categorized, and profiled in ways that have very real consequences for our lives. Scott's analysis also touches on the deceptive nature of the fluidity and diversity of our online existences. In the early days of the internet, there was a prevailing belief that the digital realm would liberate us from the constraints of gender, sexual orientation, class, age, and ethnicity. The frontier era of cyberspace was, Scott suggests, painfully short-lived. We set off pell-mell into the virtual newfound land, gleefully abandoning the old strictures, only to find them catching up with us, and indeed being still more rigidly imposed by interests for whom it is essential our identities be defined, so they can sell us stuff we don't need, but which they know we've bought in the past. The apparent fluidity is often an illusion. Our digital identities are increasingly codified, serving the logic of commerce and surveillance. The four-dimensional existence has also profoundly impacted our experience of presence and absence, particularly in the context of death and loss. Scott reflects on how the deaths of casual acquaintances can gain huge salience, even as those of old friends are lost in a spume of pixels. When someone dies, their social media profile becomes a haunting digital monument, a ghost in the machine that continues to exist in a permanent, frozen state. Friends and family can continue to post on their wall or see their pictures and status updates as they were. This creates a strange new form of mourning, where the deceased remain present in our digital lives even as they are absent from our physical one. It is a form of digital haunting that is unique to the four-dimensional human. Another aspect of this temporal dislocation is the ever-present awareness of time that our devices create. Scott describes the four-dimensional human as being ever conscious of the clock ticking in the corner of the screen. We are always aware of the time, of the demands of work emails, and of the constant stream of notifications that interrupt our attention. This can lead to a fragmented sense of time, where the present moment is perpetually disrupted by the past and the future. We are all timekeepers and time killers, as Scott puts it, constantly navigating between the demands of synchronous and asynchronous communication, between the immediate now and the eternal return of the news feed. The cultural implications of this four-dimensional life are vast and complex. Scott engages with ideas from Marshall McLuhan, the media theorist who famously coined the phrase, the global village. McLuhan's concept was intended to suggest that electronic media would create a more interconnected and empathetic world. But Scott argues that the digital village is not some Laurie Lee Hamlet where everyone brings in the hay together, but a world-girdling Hollywood chock full of over-demonstrative divas. The global village is a realm of constant performance, oversharing, and a relentless demand for attention. It is a place where we are all both actors and audience, where our lives are curated and presented for the consumption of others. Scott also addresses the accusation of digital homogeneity. He cites novelist Zadie Smith as noting that social media can enforce uniformity, shouting us down into a kind of digital sameness that inevitably entails a constricting of personality. The pressure to conform to the norms of online platforms, to present a polished and acceptable version of ourselves, can lead to a flattening of the self. The four-dimensional human is at risk of becoming a stereotype of their own making, a curated avatar that is a poor substitute for the messy, complex, and often contradictory nature of actual human beings. The question of authenticity is central to the experience of the four-dimensional human. In a world where we are constantly presenting ourselves to an audience, what does it mean to be authentic? Scott's analysis is nuanced and avoids simple answers. He recognizes the pleasures and possibilities of digital identity, the ability to explore different aspects of oneself, and to connect with communities that might be inaccessible in the physical world. But he also warns of the dangers of inauthenticity, of the pressure to project a flawless image that is ultimately unachievable. The four-dimensional human is caught in a perpetual struggle between the desire for authentic self-expression and the demands of the digital stage. The book's structure, with chapters titled The Reverse Peephole, Anatomically Correct, A Different Kind of Buzz, Style After Substance, Keeping and Killing Time, Weeping Toms, The Cabin in the Woods, The Blank Screen, and Fairy Fire, reveals the scope of Scott's inquiry. The Reverse Peephole explores the new dynamics of visibility and privacy in a world where we can look into the lives of others and be looked at in turn. Anatomically Correct likely deals with the new sense of embodiment and disembodiment that digital life creates, and how we perceive our bodies in the age of selfies and fitness trackers. A Different Kind of Buzz speaks to the specific sensory and affective qualities of digital interactions, the dopamine hits of notifications and likes. Style After Substance examines how in an era of information abundance, aesthetics and presentation can take precedence over deeper meaning. Keeping and Killing Time delves into the peculiar temporal structures of digital life. Weeping Toms explores the new forms of surveillance and vulnerability, while The Cabin in the Woods and The Blank Screen evoke the desire for escape and the fear of emptiness that accompany our networked existence. Finally, Fairy Fire refers to the intangible, ghostly glow of our digital lives, illuminating and obscuring at the same time. Kirkus Reviews describes Scott's work as a Cooley McLuhan-esque treatise on our dematerialized condition, rich in reference to the likes of Virginia Woolf and Walter Benjamin. While the book has been praised for its elegant prose and perceptive observations, some critics have also pointed out its limitations. One reviewer, writing in The Guardian, noted that Scott may not quite have the long view necessary to fully apprehend this epical transformation, and that his scholarliness, while erudite, sometimes makes him an oddly fusty zeitgeister, explaining emergent technologies almost solely by reference to content derived from the book, a medium that is itself increasingly redundant. The reviewer also argued that Scott's focus on the novelty of the virtual may overlook the extent to which the metropolitan existence of the modern world has already been constituted by a spatial analog of the cluttered screens, characterized by anonymity and rigid codification, and spatial jump cuts and temporal stitching. In other words, the four-dimensional human may be less a radical departure from the past than an intensification of long-standing trends in urban, industrialized life. Scott himself is aware of the dangers of melodramatic prophecies that can bedevil writing about the present. He identifies a sinister lockstep between humanity's technological advance and its compulsive shitting in its own nest, and tries to stave off the demon of melodramatic prophecies. Yet he can't avoid the doomsday intersection of human connectivity and environmental degradation. This is, according to one critic, a cop-out, a nostalgia for the quill and parchment that suggests literary types would prefer extinction to any version of the singularity, the absorption of biological into machine intelligence, that may lie ahead. But even in its moments of concession to determinism, the book serves as a valuable reminder that the transformation of human existence is not simply a matter of technological progress, but of complex cultural, social, and psychological shifts. The four-dimensional human concept has also found resonance in other areas of contemporary thought. A 2025 paper in the field of philosophy, The Four-World Model, Ontological Reconstruction in the AI Era, extends the concept by proposing a new framework that redefines the ontological hierarchy of human cognition, social reality, and digital existence. In this model, the first world represents physical reality, the second world, subjective experience, and the third world, cultural and symbolic systems. The emergence of the fourth world, the digital and logical world of computation, introduces a parallel form of existence governed by logic as its life principle, rather than consensus or biological law. This paper argues that the rise of large language models and autonomous digital agents marks the ontological independence of the fourth world, a step beyond Scott's metaphor toward a more formal philosophical recognition of digital existence as a distinct order of reality. The concept is also explored through the lens of a psi theory, which proposes a multidimensional variable for time, describing it not as a uniform arrow, but as a multidimensional quality or flavor. This theory suggests that entities from higher dimensions may experience and express time in abstract ways, affecting their interaction with linear 3D causality, and that consciousness acts as a modulating factor in the perception of higher dimensional phenomena. While highly speculative, these kinds of frameworks show how the philosophical and metaphorical concept of the four-dimensional human is increasingly intersecting with models in physics, metaphysics, and consciousness studies. The four-dimensional human is a product of the convergence of technology and culture, a figure that is both created by and creates the digital landscape. Scott's work does not offer easy answers to the questions he raises, but it provides an invaluable map of the psychological and emotional terrain we are now navigating. It challenges us to reflect on how our digital tools are reshaping our inner lives, our connections with others, and our understanding of what it means to be human in the 21st century. We are no longer simply inhabitants of a three-dimensional world. We are also citizens of a digital fourth dimension, with all the wonder and eeriness that entails. Our portals to this new world have been wedged open, and we are only beginning to understand the silhouette of the figure taking shape within it, a figure that, ultimately, is us.